Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Desks and Dorks, your favorite board game design and creation podcast. As always, brought to you by you. We bring you the best at indie tabletop gaming. And I can actually say that with some amount of confidence today because I am bringing one of the very best at indie tabletop gaming with me. I am not joined by Riley. I am joined by, I'm going to have him introduce himself, the man himself. But
hey, I am. I go by TheTechnoFunkBoy online, and yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. I do some mostly tabletop role playing game reviews, a lot of podcasts like Dice and Dreary, a lot of music under TheTechnoFunkBoy, and yeah, you can throw a rock onto the interwebs and probably hit me.
Yeah, and we'll post some links obviously too, because so for those of you guys who don't know, TheTechnoFunkBoy was one of the people that actually reviewed After the Rain, and this is something different that we haven't done before. As I squeak my desk chair as I re-establish myself, but we're doing this is the Designer Post Mortem, which is where a designer, me, gets to dissect a game, After the Rain. Which again, thank you to everybody who helped us raise almost $7,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was
so
nuts.
Cool.
It again, still like the most staggering 20 some days of my life. Like, just wake up, refresh the page, see there's more money, wake up, refresh the page. I need to sleep more.
Can I tell you, because like when I review, because I normally get games before the Kickstarter, or I get some part of them, and the stuff that like I really like, I start like refreshing the Kickstarter. I'm like, oh, they're doing good. I get really excited. Like I have no skin in the game at this point. My job is done, but I get so excited. I really was excited for you. It was really cool.
And by the way, folks, if you want to see a really interesting episode of After the Rain played, we actually got to play it with the Dice and Dreary crew, which was by far and away one of my favorite games, I think, of that I've played thus far.
It was epic. It was so good.
It's just like, what up through superpowers? Sure. One of us is a villain secretly? Sure. I think one of us is also secretly his own arch nemesis the whole time.
That was the best. He just mentioned that, like, which what Raven does is like he has these brilliant ideas that he just says like they're nothing, and then it takes you a second to catch on to what he just said, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be amazing.
I think I love the most that everyone else was just, it was so obvious he was his own villain, and 90% of the cast of characters like, oh my god, he's got a twin brother. Like,
yes
there's like 6 brain cells to rub together between like 8 people. Oh my god, it was awesome. But so today is a Designer Post Mortem. I wanted to bring TheTechnoFunkBoy along because he's reviewed the game, which has been amazing. And so I think having an outsider's perspective is going to be super helpful for this. I think having somebody who's sort of cast a critical eye on it. Now, those of you who are fans of the podcast know that I am notoriously critical of my own games, to the point where I have a Shadow Realm folder on my desktop, which is where all of the game prototypes that I don't like go to die. That's not a joke. There's legitimately like a little it's in the very corner, just says Shadow Realm on it. But still, awesome. I wanted to bring an outsider perspective in. And so we're going to talk a little bit about like the design history. I'm sure TheTechnoFunkBoy is going to ask some questions, which would be cool, because I think there's some things that I missed, or that maybe I missed. I guess that's not the point of, but I missed what was interesting about my own game. That does happen. Seriously, it absolutely does. It's like, I think one of my favorite anecdotes about art was the guy who did Where the Wild Things Are. A little boy wrote him a card, and it was a really, really heartfelt, moving message from this little 5-year-old. And then he drew a little sketch. And then a couple months later, the 5-year-old's mom wrote him back. And he was just like, he loved the sketch so much that he ate it. He ate the sketch. And I was like, what a weird way to appreciate someone else's art. And he was like, you know what?
That's great.
It's amazing. Right?
It's great.
Like,
no,
he loved it so much. He wanted it to be a part of him. And so he ate the sketch.
Oh gosh. No, like I totally get that. Like the last album I put out, there was one track on it that I was just concerned about. Like I was like, I felt like I was just firing on all cylinders on all the other tracks except that one track. And that was the track that everyone wrote back. It's like, dude, that track was a jam. I'm like, really? Seriously? Okay, whatever.
I mean, plug the song. People should probably get to listen to it, because I mean, listen, people need more jams. They do.
What is the name of that? Oh my gosh. Now Now I'm going to totally lose it because I can't remember the name of the song. But the most recent album is called The Dragon and the Witch.
Ooh.
And it is well, you will appreciate this. It is
sure
the soundtrack. I have several soundtracks for our Dice and Dreary campaign, which is Curse of Strahd.
Right.
So this is like I've done like 4 albums of just music that Curse of Strahd inspired. And so now I'm blanking on which one it actually was.
That's all right. If it comes to you, let us know.
I'll say it later. But Dragon and the Witch.
I'm going to get us rolling. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what we think went absolutely well. And this could be stuff from everything from visual design of the game to mechanics of the game that we think went well. That's essentially what this is a simple, like, what do we think went super great? So I'm going to go first. As the designer, I honestly think the thing that, well, let's start with the first thing. So we are a relatively new team. And I know how this is like TechnoFunkBoy doing, the stuff that you're doing and working independently. It's tough to get really quality resources put together. So for me, I still think the best thing about this was the visual design of this game. We had so many limitations going into this. Monetarily, there's really not a whole lot we can afford. If those of you, my homies in the game design industry, know that art ain't cheap. And good art is good art is especially expensive. So when we got this logo,
the logo's rad.
The logo is super rad. A friend of ours did this, and it was one of those things where, and I don't know if you know this, Paul, I tricked Riley into this. I tricked everyone that worked into this game into working on this game, because I brought this game first to our graphic designer, and I did it very intentionally, where I knew she doesn't care about the money so much. She wants to work on a project that she thinks she can do something with. She is more interested as an artist in being challenged. And so if a project doesn't challenge her, like, she's not interested in it. And so we played the game first under the guise of it being a role-playing game that I found online. So she didn't know it was mine till we had played a full 2-hour campaign. And she was sitting back, just rubbing her temples going, "Oh my God, this was great." And I go, "I know. Do you want to do art for it?" And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's mine. I lied." And then she had some choice words for me. And then she said, "Yes, absolutely." So I think that was one of the things that did really well. Was that I think mechanically, there were a lot of things that I like about how we chose to approach it. It's not a game for everybody. I feel like we've said that quite a bit, is that it's not a game for people who are relatively new to role playing. It's not a game for people who don't want to be challenged. But for the people that do, I think it fits that niche. Like we weren't making a Ford, we were making a Ferrari. Like, not everyone's going to want it, and that's fine. So mechanically, I like that everything gets started super quick. Everyone already starts kind of knowing each other, so there's some built-in pathos, which is good. I liked the fact that you have to lose stuff, because I think if you boil down most role-playing game characters anyway, they're pretty much only 3 or 4 traits, really, if you really think about it. And I wanted to just get to the meat of those things.
Okay.
Role playing.
All right, so that's the thought process on the three facet
100%, because I've played so many role playing games where I'm like, everyone's like, "Oh, I've got this, and this going on," and then but really, it's like, I have daddy issues. I'm a warlock with daddy issues. I'm consumed by my own power. I'm afraid that I'm not going to have any friends. I'm like, that's it. And so we wanted to get to the meat of it. I think we succeeded. I think by forcing people to lose something, I think we really succeeded, because it had to force them to think about what's important to my character all the time, always, which is super fun. I think all of that worked super well mechanically. And I think having a shared goal that you shape with the rest of the team is super helpful too, because I think once you get everybody on board, that was good. I think mechanically that's it. I do want to say one more thing that I think went super well. So I'm going to hold a book up. We're going to put this on YouTube as well, so you can see it. If this is a podcast, please know that I'm holding the spine up to the camera. So the printing service that we have doesn't let you put the name of the game on the spine of the book, which is a huge challenge. So this spine, this super funkadelic looking spine, is a artifact of us needing something that's eye-catching when the book is side-faced. And so we tried a bunch of designs, and I knew it was going to work. We put it into our friendly local game store's role-playing game shelf. We put it among all the other rule books side-faced, and the spine popped out.
Yeah.
So getting blood from a stone visually, I think, was something we did well. That's the stuff I thought went well.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's weird that they don't let you do that. First of all,
it's too small. There's a minimum page count to get your name on the spine.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that does make sense. Yeah,
and we're like 30 or 40 pages too small for it.
Got it. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, because I've done some like book covers that were kind of narrow, and trying to find a font that's readable and still small enough is but they were larger than that. But yeah, no, that makes sense. I love the logo, the motif, and just the way the whole book the whole book looks.
So what went well for you? Because that's always the thing I'm curious about every time I talk to like people who play games. And again, I hope at this point you know that you can be as brutally honest with me as possible. If you're like, it sucked. I mean, you would have told us ostensibly in the review if it did, but
yeah, absolutely, I would have, and I wouldn't be here today.
That's very true. I wouldn't have gone on the show. That's a good point. We wouldn't have.
No, we wanted to bring on a critic who just thinks we're the worst.
I mean, at some point I kind of want to. If I'm one of the game's bombs, I would love to know.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things, and I'm going to use the phrasing that you used because I think it's really good. But this is something that I noticed too when we did our test play, is that normally in D&D everybody starts off super serious and then becomes a joke at the end, and just a parody of their character. And in this game, everybody starts off with a parody, and it becomes super serious at the end. And that's like so the game that we played together, like we had somebody who was his own worst enemy, and no one else was smart enough to figure it out. And I thought we had a remarkably dramatic end that I adored. Yeah. I loved it, and I wasn't expecting it at all. For it to play out the way it did, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And so that happened. I've listened to the test plays that y'all have released, and I've played it a couple of times myself. It's happened every time. And and the ending becomes like ends up being just even a small amount of profound every time, which I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that mechanically, it is so player driven. And as the forever DM, holy smokes, I appreciate that. Like my whole prep the first time was actually learning the mechanics of the game. But this is, and this is something I mentioned in the review, this is something that I can take to some friends' houses. Like, hey, we got 2 hours, let's play this, and we'll figure it out as we go. And okay, what's going on? You tell me this time. And so, there's some stuff for the DM to throw in, but it's player driven enough that the DM can play as a player too, which is very, very fun.
Could you tell it was made by a forever DM?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the character driven nature of it, and just the fact that you are losing something, and you have to think that through as the player of this character, of what this means for the character is that thing that drives the ending into seriousness. Because even if you are a bumbling idiot of a superhero, you're losing something and you are losing something important to you.
Well, good.
No, I would just say that, for anybody, that's a profound moment. And I think that's great.
One of the things, so when we talk about why the game was made the way it was we talk about this concept all the time in writing, where there's buy-in, right? How do you get buy-in from the audience? And I'll never forget, there's a phenomenal novelist. His name is Robert Olin Butler. So there you go, guys. There's your literary cred for the day. But he was a Vietnam soldier. I got to see him speak, but he won a Pulitzer for his work. And he actually came to teach a creative writing class at my college. And I got to listen to him talk. And he goes, it was this talk about world building versus characters. And it's sort of the talk about like how, you know, what matters in a novel, what matters in a story. And he goes, you can have the best looking world ever, but if people don't believe the characters are in there, if people don't resonate with those characters, it's worth wet cardboard. It's worth nothing. Right. And I know that always stuck with me. So when I was setting out to make the game, like you said, I wanted character driven first and foremost, and I wanted player driven first and foremost. Because, and this is something I'm sure you've observed too from playing Dungeons and Dragons games, but like it's so hard sometimes to get players interested in the world of a D&D campaign. Like there's that clip of It's Always Sunny in the Forgotten Realms. Someone just photoshopped, it's like the faces from everyone and It's Always Sunny into the Lord of the Rings Fellowship. Yeah, and I think part of that is that they can't get into it if they're like, I'm not these characters. I don't resonate. But if they're the ones making the story, if they're the ones shaping it, if they're the ones doing those things, it becomes a story they've got ownership of. And I think it lends itself, which is why I think it starts as jokes. I think every role-playing game starts as jokes. If I'm being honest. Like I say as I'm DMing a game for kids now, and one of them, her demonic patron is legitimately a bluebird that stays with them just because he's bored in disguise, and only one other person in the party is aware of it, and nobody likes this guy in the party. And so every time he tries to tell them there's a demon like literally living on one of their shoulders, they're like, shut up, dude. Be quiet. No one likes you. But it starts goofy all the time. But I was like, if they have some ownership of it, I want them to have ownership of it, because then the game can be profound. But it's only going to, you know, role-playing games in general, it's only as much meaning as the players give it.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, a lot of the games that I play in become actual play podcasts. Mm-hmm. And that's something that like, I listen to a lot of actual play podcasts just to see what my competition is. And, you know, and you've played with my crew. We're pretty good. Your crew is excellent. And I mean that with all sincerity. Having played with a lot of people. Yeah. But that's the thing, is I'll turn on something and somebody is going to be playing a character that is interesting to them in a D&D campaign, and it's not interesting to me as a listener at all. And and as a listener, I get to automatically turn it off, right? Which is great. But if you're a player there, like playing a character that's just simply irritating and not interesting and not reflective at all, and not in a good way. Like you can play an oaf that is, you know, humorously not reflective and all, but a character that you just like have no sympathy for, it affects the game. And you can end up killing Strahd at the end. But I mean, that's not the stories we tell. Right. We tell the crazy character driven stories of like one that happened in my Dragonlance campaign where the Kinder was trying to convince a blind ancient red dragon. If you've read the books, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. That she was just a child that was having trouble sleeping, and the red dragon called her over and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll put you to sleep, come lay down here. And then the Kinder failed her constitution save and fell asleep, and so took a nap with this dragon, and like the rest of the party's like shuffling all the other kids out away, and the Kinder's just sawing logs. It was the most amazing thing. There wasn't a battle at all there. It was just character driven. It was so good. So, and weirdly enough, if you could think about it, so this game had been in development, by the way, for a while, like as a bunch of different things for me, before I could finally figure out how to get the system to work. Because the rain had not always been the driving system. The rain had been part of the background for a long time, for a bunch of different drafts of this. And the two shows that finally broke this, it's so funny, but like we talk about character driven stuff more than anything else, were True Detective, which I would rewatch for I think like the 9th time or whatever. My girlfriend had never seen it and I wanted her to see it, which is super character driven, but neither character gets anything. They don't gain anything. They wind up losing things. And that's really what makes them. And then Seven, and I was like, oh my God, these characters, if you look at those movies, right, respectively,
those characters don't grow or gain, they lose.
Yeah.
And the people they are by the end of both the series and the movie are fundamentally different people. And once I was like that, once I said, oh my God, like he lost his nihilism, now he's a good person, or this guy lost his whole family and was finally forced to take a good hard look at himself and the person he wanted to be in True Detective for that example, I was like, holy crap. And then that's what made it click. So
Nice.
yeah, God bless True Detective. If you've never watched True Detective season 1, everybody go watch it. It's worth it. Go watch 7. Please watch 7 if you've never watched that. That's a 2-hour investment that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
All right, stuff that went badly, and I do have some stuff.
I'm gonna butt in with questions.
No, do it
instead of saving them to the end. Like I probably should be doing.
No, do it. Intersperse them. That sounds better.
The rain itself, was there ever a time that that you were thinking, okay, the quest is to figure out what in the world this rain is, or was it always just simply the kind of interior explanation of the mechanic?
It was always the driving force. Because for me, and this I think goes back to that idea of like, what is interesting as an art form, or what is interesting as a story. For me, whether or not the rain is, the creation of a mad supervillain, a brand new drug. We did a sci-fi one where it was just a side effect of this sort of like chemical rain on this extraplanetary resort. It didn't, not to say that it was set dressing, but for me, it was a vehicle to get to the interesting character questions. That's what I was chasing.
Right. Yeah.
So it was never a question. And now that's not to say that you can't do a campaign where, finding out why this chemical, this magic, this cosmic rain force exists is impossible. I think it totally is. And I mean, chances are one of our 173 backers, I'm sure we'll try it at some point.
Sure.
But for me, it was never, as the author, as the artist behind it, I never once wondered where it came from, because for me, it was just a vehicle to get to the character growth. And that's, because I think back to, have you ever played Fiasco? That's the other big inspiration. No. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Fiasco changed prior to me playing that game. So shout out to Jason Morningstar if you're ever listening to this. But prior to me playing that game, I had no other role-playing game experience other than Dungeons and Dragons. And so I was really used to this concept of, the DM presents this story, and while the characters are active movers and shakers within that world, within that story, it feels like a top-down structure in a lot of ways. Whereas Fiasco felt like a circle where the whole story was the character growth. You could make a wonderful plot, and I've played some incredibly plot-driven games of Fiasco, but you were really there just to watch these really flawed people flail around and try to figure out themselves. And as a 15-year-old who was obviously in the process of figuring out himself, that was, even if I couldn't I don't think I could have explained it quite as eloquently then as I can now, having some time to have like perspective and some reflection on those moments. But that was such a world shifting moment for me as a writer, as a game designer, as somebody who was like, wants to do or is doing those creative things, because man, that was like, I imagine it was like hitting like drugs for the first time, because it was such a perspective shift. I was like, holy crap, this is what we can do for stories. This is what we could do for character growth. Like, my character died horribly in one of the games of Fiasco that we played, and it was beautiful. It was a death, or not a death, but it was a loss worth celebrating, because it meant that there had been some seismic change in a person for whom there had been no change.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
and so
look that up. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's such a, Will Wheaton, by the way, of tabletop fame, does a playthrough of it. That's still one of the coolest role-playing game things I've ever listened, where it's him and a bunch of, it's the staff writer from Leverage. If you remember that wonderful television show, it's one of the lead writers from Leverage, and Will Wheaton, and not Felicia Day. I forget the other two. Bonnie Britton is one of them. There's another actress of some pretty decent repute, and the four of them play like a 70s heist game. And it is just watching those characters be what they are and then be what they become at the end of it is just soul crushing in a lot of ways. But for me, I was like, man, I have been chasing that dragon, I think, ever since. And After the Rain feels like me grabbing the tail finally. But like, I did it. I have something. I have some character stuff, which is cool. So
nice.
Yeah. But that's a good question. The rain has never been, long answer to a short question. No, I could not care less where the rain comes from.
Well, and that's, I mean, it was the right choice. And when this was passed on to me, it's like, hey, Paul, you want to review this? Of course. Yeah, let me take a look. And it was like, all right, yeah, range, like, all right. So this is gonna be like some kind of weird, like, gothic horror type thing where they're trying to figure out some magic and I'm reading it, I'm like, oh no, this isn't what I was expecting at all. I very rarely read actual summaries before looking at the book, but this it opens it up a lot more, and especially in a day where I think generally in any sort of narrative field, we're asking for answers way too often. Well, and I like that. I really like that it becomes it seems like the focus of the game, and it's not at all.
Right. And honestly too, I love that when you say, we're looking for answers, and that open feel. If you're talking about like a tabletop inspiration other than Fiasco, the first edition, the first edition of D&D module I ever owned, I bought it at a thrift store, and it was Keep on the Borderlands.
I've heard of that one, but I have not read it.
It's Gary Gygax at his very best. I will die on that hill. But what was so fascinating about it was there isn't really an adventure path in that game. You are given it's a first level D&D module, but then you are just given, as the dungeon master, you are just given the scope of this land, the players that are in it, the major factions, the major people, their motivations, and then you're just free to use it as a sandbox.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I was like, that's such a cool concept for a D&D adventure, because as a dungeon master, I'm like, oh my God, it worked because my players would bounce between one thing to another thing to another thing. And I had motivations. There was no direction, but it was freedom for them to do and shape that world as they saw fit. It was right. And I think all of the role-playing games that Desks and Dorks has made and is in the process of making now, so I can say that with some relatively not worrying about, tweaking our release schedule or anything like that, but they're all toolboxes. I want to empower people to tell stories rather than make them tell what, a given tale, I guess. So
that's very cool. I like it.
All right. Are we ready to talk about what didn't go well? or I guess things we could tweak and change. So there are some things that I would like to change. The biggest one, and this has been the biggest complaint, biggest piece of feedback, and it's the thing that I am working on making possible both for this game at a later date at some point, and for some future Desks and Dorks releases, is the one thing I kept hearing from everybody was, we want campaign play for this. Because people got attached to these characters and they loved that meaningful growth that those people went through. And for a lot of our testers, for a lot of the people, actually pretty much across the board, I'd say like 95% of the people that tested this game or reviewed this game said, we want to come back to these people. We want to come back to these characters. Again, there's like some part of them that's like, even though the story is done, those characters have experienced that growth, that change. For a lot of these people, they're like, walking away from that character after 2 hours hurts emotionally for them. And I was like, and it made sense, right? I like a game that's done in 2 hours because I work all the time. And the days that I had for 9-10 hours of role playing are sadly over. I'm sure you understand how that feels, but there's not a ton you can do all the time. But that was the big thing that's
interesting. Okay.
That I'm looking forward. And the one thing I wish I could change, and again, this is something that I am working on adding now to some future Desks and Dorks releases, is the way that the game works, where you get to pick your scenes, right? If you look, so for example, even our superhero one, if you look, I am the one who does not have, I have barely any scenes in Act 1 or Act 3.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so that was the one thing that, as I'm looking at a lot of our playtest data, as I'm listening to a lot of our playtests, there's downtime. There's a lot of downtime for some players. Now, in a really good campaign, and I think the superhero one that we had was a perfect example of this, the downtime doesn't matter because the story is so interesting, right? People are engaged. Right, yeah. But still, as someone who's a game designer, and I think this is partially because I work in education, where the goal is to have every student engaged all the time, I'm thinking to myself, how do I keep those players that aren't in an active scene engaged in the game if the story doesn't draw them in. And
Right.
that to me is like, it's not perfect in After the Rain, but I think there are some, like, if I could go back, I don't know if I'd change the system. This system, I don't think I would, but hearing that bit of feedback where some players were like, it was cool, but like, I felt like sometimes I wanted to be doing something. I wanted to be doing more. That was the one piece of it. I'm like, I think if I was redoing this, I would maybe try to find a way to make that work, whether it's a variant rule, an addition, something like that. But that was the one thing where I'm like, man, I wish there was a way I could make, even if you're not in the scene, I wish I could make some player feel like they're a part of it still, even, which is hard to do in role playing. It's almost impossible, I would argue. But
yeah,
those are the two big ones. That was the two
Okay.
big pieces of feedback that I got, that I was like, man, if I could just tweak some of that.
See that, yeah, okay. So I'll say in our game, it was extraordinarily long.
Yeah, it was.
And not in a bad way. Like I loved it, but but it was it was a bunch of people used to stealing the show, and
yeah,
and it went well like that. So like in my test game, I didn't run into that problem because I had the starting scene of like one character walking into the tavern where everybody was. It was a medieval campaign that works with there, and instead of starting everybody else as separate. But that the system as it is now is good because it does, decidedly include everyone. It's like, no, you're going to tell part of the story. Here's the microphone and it's your turn. We'll wait. And that's look, and like some of the games I play are with extremely shy people, and and they want to be involved, and that's really good because like it's like, okay, it's your turn, what would you like to do? And that engages them. But yeah, I can see I could see, especially if you're the last to arrive in the group, that you could be sitting there for 45 minutes going, okay, yeah, well, now I know everybody else's story.
Yep.
The campaign sounds interesting because I don't know who runs y'all's Twitter, but I was tagging y'all a lot because I was talking about making action figures of Cybatros, the psychic albatross, going, I'm not sure why I haven't gotten a call about the movie rights yet. It's been 12 hours, and I
still want t-shirts.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Like that, yeah, I could okay, I get abnormally attached to my characters. So my character in Dice and Dreary, but the group, I got so attached to him, I wrote a novel about him. And so like this is an actual play podcast that has a spinoff fan fiction written by one of the players. And, but like, no, like yeah, like I would love to have more adventures of that team,
or even prequel stuff would be fun.
It need to be prequels because then we could have the arch villain, and none of us knows because we all figured it out by the end. Spoiler alert. y'all need to go listen, watch that stream. It was
nutty. It was nutty. It was true. And that's so on that topic too. So even the shy player thing, I'm glad you brought that up because the montage in Act 2, which if you remember our podcast, that recording of the Superhero War stream is like 5 hours, right? 4 hours, 5 hours.
It's 4, yeah,
of us playing. And the montage in Act 2 is maybe 6 minutes, but the montage was, and if you notice there is a rule that says, hey, if somebody just wants to narrate what they want to do and the game master calls for roll, they can. That was my compromise for the players who don't want to take the mic all the time and grab it.
Yeah. But
I'm like, man, but again, it felt like me trying to stick a Band-Aid on a sucking chest wound and being like, all right, listen, this is clearly you're having a rough time if you're super shy. So here's my attempt at, patching it up at least a little bit. But I mean, man, I think shy players too, it would have been something nice if I could have just worked out some way to help those people out too a little bit more.
Right.
Because I know quite a few shy players who love role-playing games and they're just like, I just don't know how to start. How just starting is hard.
Well, okay, and this is off topic.
Yeah, go for it.
You didn't tell me to stay on topic.
No, I didn't. So go.
Back in like I played very, very, very little Dungeons and Dragons back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the South, and during the Satanic Panic, I was not allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. But I played a little bit in college, and like the solution that like 2E had for that stuff was that rolls meant something.
Yeah.
It's like if you were the thief, you did the thief stuff. You like, hey, there's a trap there, thief, go pick it, because none of us can. Mm-hmm. If you're the cleric, it's like, cleric, we need you to be engaged because we're hurting and none of us have healing spells except you. But now in 5e, like everybody can do everything. And so that just like the characters are more varied, but that feeds into the player that is that's the attention hog. Yeah. That just is the first one to jump up and want to do everything.
It almost feels like it's and all right, now we're fully off topic, but now I'm running 5e now. And
you knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, I did. But my biggest complaint is it's such a homogenization of everything. I love 5e because I feel like D&D is finally mainstream. Which if you had told 15, 16, 17-year-old Kyle that Dungeons and Dragons would be mainstream, and instead of hiding my character sheets from the cheerleader that I had a crush on at the time, I probably, and she wanted to know, by the way, again, hindsight being 2020, I am the world's biggest clueless idiot. She was like, "Oh, those are really cool. Can you tell me about it?" I was like, no. Like, runs away. I was like, dude, she wanted to know, man. She like, just talk to her, dude. But like, again, there's such a homogenization of those roles. It feels like even between 3.5, which is still my favorite edition, and 5th, it feels like just the sanding off of, and again, it's a round ball, right? It's an orb. 5th edition is this smooth orb that anybody can grab, which is great. It makes it accessible. It makes it easy to pick up and put down. But in doing so, we've lost, and yes, we've sanded the sharp edges off all of the different things that are obtuse or hard to appreciate or difficult to learn. But in doing so, I think we've lost something too. Like, again, that's I think your second edition thing is just, it's so, because again, reading the second edition rule books, it felt like everybody had a place.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. The Unearthed Arcana, I'm a Dragonlance fanatic. That's what half of my YouTube channel is about, is Dragonlance, and we just got some rules, the Dragonlance rules on Unearthed Arcana, and the Kinder stuff is pretty good. But and I didn't even notice, but somebody pointed out, it's like, oh, speed is 30 feet for a halfling. That's that's a sharp edge that they're grinding off, and it's and to me that like I like playing characters with limitations, and like when you're running away and you have the slow character, it makes the party stop and think, and I like that instead of just everybody jogging at the same speed. It makes a moment of panic that fosters creativity.
It does, and I don't know. I think so. One of my groups has gone from 5th edition to 3.5.
Oh, nice.
Which has been, because they were like, we want to try it. We've heard you jabber on about it incessantly. Let's try it.
You're just like, it's stupid. Yeah, it's stupid 5th edition rule. Really, this was 3.5. You'd actually have fun.
and then here's what happened. First campaign session, I did a good job prefacing it. I said, listen, guys, in 3.5, you have less hit points. You have less skill abilities. There are no multiple death saving throws. You fail one and you're it. That's it. Or if you're knocked unconscious and bleeding, chances are will probably finish you off while you're on the ground before moving on to the next person. Right. I was like, are the party's only cleric. They're like looking for essentially a death cult. They're looking for the Emerald Claw if you've played Eberron. And he just starts asking random people if they've seen this highly secretive, very sinister death cult in this group and this town. And then they're like, some guy's like, yeah man, I have, come with me. Never met this person before in his life, and then immediately gets taken to this building that's abandoned and then jumped by them and killed. and none of the other players know what happened to him because he didn't tell anybody where he was going beforehand.
Oh wow, that's great.
And they were like, the players are sitting there going, as he like gets stabbed to death trying to make it back out the door.
Yeah.
And again, and it was a moment that made them appreciate, oh my God, there's danger, there's risk, there's stakes.
Yeah.
I wonder if adding roles, though, not like hard set roles, but having something that each player specializes in might help. I'm wondering that might be useful. Interesting. I'm gonna have to think on that. That like the idea of having every person be like a scribe or a speaker or whatever, I think could be super, super beneficial in terms of like what we're looking for. But man, I like that. No, I like that idea, Paul. I like that idea a lot, man. That's super. Oh, that's interesting. Now I'm thinking. All right. What else didn't work? I mean, was there anything else that like
done my job?
Yes, he's done it. Was there anything else that struck you as like weird or odd? Like again, talking about those.
Done my job. I'm leaving.
He's out. He's out, boy. He's out.
All right. Yes. So it took me a little bit of time to communicate what the facets actually were to the team. And like, I think there's room for like some more options there that would make it clearer what we're actually looking for.
Yeah.
And once they got it, and I think there's a moment that like okay, it kind of clicks, and you realize it's like, okay, I can really kind of do anything, and I'll make it fit into one of these groups, and that's fine, you know. But there, the kind of the explanation curve on that was a little steeper for a one shot that you're trying to do in a couple of hours there. Right. But that being said, all my players got it at the end, and they've, and it worked, and everybody was happy.
Yeah.
And so that's the real thing. I'll like, I have here my, advanced copy that I used to review it. But the suggestion I made a while back was like, I was really unclear about what Act 3 was actually supposed to do. Yeah. And I think y'all expanded it a little bit that I haven't seen, and so I can't tell you whether it was good or not. But
I think I did at least 2 additional pages on Act 3.
Oh, the good. Yeah, I think that's really useful, because Act 3 was unclear. Like everything else was like super clear to me as the DM. Act 3 was, I wasn't sure how exactly to run it, and I messed it up according to the first time I played it. I messed it up according to the rules, anyways. And I looked at it later. I'm like, oh yeah, I messed that up. Oh well.
I'm going to tell you right now, the best thing anyone has ever said about board games to me. My friend Nate, who I jokingly call him my adopted son. He's my son. Let's be real. He's my kid. He's like 16. He's essentially my son. I take him everywhere. But at one point we were playing this game totally wrong. And I guess somebody had come around and was like trying to rules lawyer. They were not part of the game. And I just remember he stopped what he was doing and he looks at me and he goes, listen, if everyone is playing the game wrong, that's how the game is played. I was like, yes, king.
It's kind of like when the Monopoly people tried to tell you, it's like, no, free parking doesn't mean you get all the money in the middle. It's like, well, no one is playing the way you play it. Yeah. So everybody puts the money in the middle and does it. So that's the rule now.
And there it is. And again, and it's such a fun, but like, as long as you're having fun with it, I mean, realistically, that's the best one. And I'm glad, by the way, you brought up the Act 3 thing, because now we get to talk about what we would do differently. Obviously, this is going to be different for you because obviously you didn't make the game, but this could be a helpful place for suggestions or, some of those additional questions. I know if you have any more of those. But for me, expanding Act 3 was actually the first thing I put on this list. When you said those, I looked back and I was like, oh my God, that's so bare bones compared to what I have for Acts 1 and 2. I'm like, oh no. We also didn't put a summary of what the game was on our Kickstarter page for the first week.
Maybe that's why I didn't know what it was when I got
RIP. We literally, we were like, Riley and I looked at each other. I swear to, and this is a testament to Riley just being the absolute unit that he is. Riley had our projected sales. Riley had our margins for everything. By the way, I would like to point out to everybody, if you can get someone like Riley, a logistics partner like Riley, none of you can have him. He's mine, hands off. But if you could get someone,
my next question. I've got projects. I
mean, if you want some advice, there's definitely you have a one designer and one logistics person who are not just deeply indebted for a wonderful review, but actually like you as a person who would be willing to help. I'm just saying.
Oh, I will take you all heard it. He's gonna edit this out of the final, but I will take you up on that for sure.
It's a legit offer. But Riley had our projected figures. Riley had our projected shipping times before we have even ordered anything. He had it all mapped out. I had our playtest groups already set up. I had everything scripted. I had done, I think, 8 edits of the book at that point. Neither of us caught not having a summary on the Kickstarter page.
I'm taking notes. And you know this. I've told you this, but like I am early planning my first Kickstarter. It's going to be a full D&D campaign. But it's now I'm taking a critical eye, like everybody's Kickstarter. I'm like, okay, that's what they need. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out book prices and artist prices. Oh, that's going to be bad.
Art is gonna murder you.
There's so many times that I wish I could draw something instead of write, and but no, I'm the writer. I am not the illustrator, and so it's but yeah, I'm gonna put that on my note. Be sure and actually give an idea what the game is about on Kickstarter.
Yeah. And on that note too, one of the things that I wish I had done for playtests, didn't do it when we sent our playtest copies out. We did not have a table of contents. I kid you not, we did not have a table of contents or page numbers till probably the second round of testing. And I literally remember looking at Riley going, and again, we are both to blame for this. Riley and I, and not even that, we had 2 or 3 people who are like very like grammatically inclined human beings who all edited the book. And so legitimately the book went through probably 3 rounds of editing, I think, before we sent it to playtesters for the first time. Not a single solitary one of us caught that there was no table of contents.
No. And like, look at, like, I mean, I've written books. It's, this is like when somebody plops something down in front of you to edit, that you don't look at that.
No,
you don't like if somebody asked me to edit something, if they tell me, it's like, look, this has been formatted, I will look at the format. It's like, does this look nice? Is it, maybe does it have page? I don't look at that. I would miss it. Like I just looked because I didn't know. No table of contents in mine.
No, because yours is one
Never
of the
noticed.
copies.
Never noticed.
Exactly. But and you want to know how we noticed? It wasn't even during an official playtest. I brought it in to show friends of mine, and they're like, listen, dude, you never shut the heck up about this game that you're working on. Let's just play the darn thing then. And I was like, all right, bet, I'll bring it in. Sure, let's do it. Brought it in, and they said, oh, we just talked about facets. Where's the facet for, I think it was like a charge or something like that, or irresistible urge. I go, oh, it's on page. Let me check. Open the book up and there's nowhere to check it at. I was like, dude, you're an idiot, bro.
Oh gosh.
I'm trying to think, but yeah, I mean, most of it was just, and this will be, I mean, I'm sure this would be helpful for you, and it's not advice that I think you even need to hear, but frankly speaking, it's advice I tell everybody anyway. Dear God, there was so much that came out in playtesting that I was like, how did we not catch that? How did we not see that? How did we not want that or add that or miss that? Literally, if there was one thing that I could change, I want to, God, if I could playtest every game double the amount of times we actually can, I mean, we'd never get a game published, but
yeah,
God, blind playtesting is worth its weight in just gold. Like, if you can get people when you're not there to read your rule book, that's the one thing I know I need to, like, again, we did it a ton, but more blind playtesting would be something that I would do every time, all the time, always. Just yeah.
Like, oh gosh, I'm trying to, I'm blanking on what I got, because I have an adventure that I hope to have out soon that I'm going to be sending y'all. And
please do.
But like the first play test, it was it came back and it was like yeah, so my players were asking this really obvious question that I couldn't find the answer to, and it was something in my head that I knew, that I had considered, and I knew it about my villain. This is a vampire, and I never wrote down. And and I was like, oh yeah, let me add that. And so yeah, playtest is good.
More playtesting and just the formatting stuff. Like we were so focused on the game that we were like, we didn't think about a summary. We didn't think about a table of contents. We were so focused on like the game, and it's little stuff like that like you missed the forest for the trees, which is kind of funny. But I think that's pretty much it in terms of things I would do differently. I think in terms of graphic design, it's everything that I wanted it to be. I know you don't have the full color, but like, I'm just going to show, like, that looks just dope. Yeah. It's just so pretty. So I'm happy with how it looks. I'm happy with how it's framed. I'm happy with how it's played. I'm happy with the response that we've gotten from people who have reviewed it and played it and tested it. But man, what a learning experience for a first Kickstarter. Like, what a learning experience.
This was a good one. And I in the reason I contacted y'all to see if y'all wanted to play with us was because like I mean, like, I've got, actually, I don't have anything I'm supposed to be reviewing right now, which worries me because I know 3 things are going to come in the mail, very
all
soon.
at once. Oh yeah.
But like most of the time, like, I've continued playing 2 games that I reviewed, and this is one of them. But normally it's like, this is really, really good. Okay, shelf, because I've got something else to review. Yeah. But all the players, because we were playing something else, and they were like, hey, what are we gonna do after rain again? And somebody else chimed in on Discord and was like, oh yeah, no, we got to do that one again, that was good. And I was like, okay, this was as solid as I thought it was, because they were all about it. And we had conversing by email. I'm like, let me check with the 2 of them. Let me see if they want to join. And you were able to, and it was amazing. Yeah. It was a great game. And so I thought it was great. I was really, really happy that you succeeded so greatly, and it was very cool.
Yeah,
very cool to see.
It was, and again, it was one of those things. It's so weird. Like, again, I am probably the most critical person to my own games. Like sometimes where I'm like, for example, I have a game right now that I brought to, one of my friends at Ravensburger and a couple other people. And I'm like, it's good. And they liked it. And they're like, oh, some tweaks need to be made. And I'm going to work on it. But After the Rain was the one where I played it once and I was like, okay, this is it. There are some things that need to be added. I need to add some tweaks. There needs to be some testing done. But for the most part, like, we played the first time, and I remember ending that first game being like, this is the one that I want to hang my hat on. If we're going to do a first one, it has to be this one. And like, there was no doubt. And it wasn't just me. I was like, I need to look at my players. And if my players are in that moment and feeling the way that I think they'll be feeling, then I'm there, I'm good. And they were. And I was like, cool, this is the thing that I think I can do now. And it was excellent. It remains, again, I am very excited for this summer when people get to see it. I'm very excited to go actually see it on shelves at a local game store. That's super. That's going to be, that's going to feel like just the world. But
there's only one time in my life that I've seen something I created on a shelf at a store. And I was 18 years old, and I was delivering pizzas at the time, and I had way too much money because I had no expenses. Like, I was living at home, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was making like $10 an hour back when $10 an hour was really good.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna self-produce a CD. And like get a studio and like self-produce a CD. And I sold like 3 copies, and I think I have like 500 still. But I started giving away to friends and stuff. And like a few days later, I was at a pawn shop and I found my CD. at the pawn shop.
No.
Yeah, I was, but yeah, that's always been that would be an epic moment to actually see something there on the shelf. That I think that would be very cool. I'm excited. I'm excited for you on that.
It's gonna be sweet, man. And a huge thank you to you, by the way, for producing my favorite review of the game. Am I allowed to say that? Riley's not here. I'm allowed to say it. I hear Riley in my ear right now going, now Kyle, we have to no. But again, like it's always, we talked about, I mean, before, like the kid eating the art from from Where the Wild Things Are, but like it's always the big fear, I think, is like, are people going to get what you're trying to go for? Like, is the theme and the mythos, what it is you're trying to make? And I was like, I watched that review, I was like, holy crap, someone gets it. Holy crap. I remember, like,
oh man, I appreciate that. Like at the very beginning, I did not mention Everything Board Games, which is where I write, and I do some written, some video. I like doing video a lot more. It's more fun. Yeah. But I think it's more effective too. But like that's whenever I'm looking at a product, that's what I want, like, to get to the point. It's like, what is trying to be communicated here? What is the designer trying to make us experience and feel? Not like, okay, this was kind of a cool dungeon. There was some zombies over here and some kobolds over there, something like that. That's fun too, and that's a separate question to whether it's fun. But what are we going to walk away from the table thinking? And that's what I'm trying to go for. And I always get excited when I hear back from creators. It's like, dude, you saw it, and I was like, yes, all right, I did my job well.
And that was awesome, because, like, again, even if it had been harsh, like, I would have probably been okay with it, because I was like, you at least got the character of what we were trying to do. And like, if it had been harsh criticism, I'd have been like, it was probably earned. So it was awesome. I think that's it for the designer post-mortem. I don't have any other points to discuss. Did you have any other questions? Anything else that you wanted to add, Paul?
And you might not be able to answer this, but
right. Well, I'm excited. I love questions that I may not be able to answer. That's exciting.
So what I expected playing it for the first time is that players would and there is somebody at the door, and I mean, my wife's home somewhere. If you hear doorbell ringing, don't worry, I'm not ignoring people. It's actually my kids coming home. But
children, I'm trying to play games now. Go.
I'm trying to do important stuff in my life.
Beautiful.
Okay, so what I expected of the game is for the players to kind of in their head figure out, okay, this is going to be kind of the path of the character. This is where I'm going to start, and this is the facets, and this is kind of how things are going to end up. And I've played a couple of games of it, and it really hasn't done that. Was there any guard that you put in to try to prevent players from railroading themselves?
There wasn't a guard put in to prevent players from railroading themselves, but I think the shared preparation is really the biggest of the guards. If there is a guard, I think it's that, right? And that was actually something I picked up when I played Fiasco, and I played Fiasco 5, 6, 7 times. And then I was like, wow, like, it's really possible for you, not railroad yourself, but put yourself in a position that your character would never be in, or B, put yourself in a position where your character was struggling so hard, it just didn't matter. And I think part of that was in Fiasco, people have a scene. They determine what's the goal for that scene. And sometimes the goal gets away from them. And I noticed that because the goal for each of those scenes changed from scene to scene, from character to character, it was harder for them to identify what the need was. And I was like, I wonder if we talk about a shared goal at the beginning, so that every scene is in service to that greater goal, even if you wind up screwing yourself up, right? Even if you wind up, putting yourself in a corner, there's probably some way that you could spin it, some way that another character could come along and say, hey, now that you're done doing this, I need your help with X, because that's what we have to do to achieve the goal. That to me was the thing that I wanted, because I think if people know what the objective is, even if they railroad themselves or screw up or have some difficulty, I think they'll be able to get back to it. That was my thought process when I was making the game initially, was A, involve the players, because I think the players want to be involved in the storytelling process, and B, make it so that once they know what the goal is, they can build it around that. And that has become arguably, I think, the best asset for it. Because even my players, who, God love them, are just the biggest squirrels in the entire world, are still like, oh no, we gotta, dude, bring it back in. Cause like we gotta train to rob. Oh God, I can't believe I'm using train examples. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate After the Train. I hate it. It's the worst thing in the world.
I have a story about that, but go ahead.
That was it. So again, when I was making the game, that was my fail safe. That was, I wanted to, rather than have like a rail to like stop you from flipping over, I just wanted you to be so focused on where you were going, you didn't even think about it. I wanted to bake that safe. I wanted to bake that into the system so it felt natural rather than felt forced.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was one moment in our superhero game where we were going to go and me and Jen were going to go off and do a scene together, and we were messaging back and forth. It's like, no, I got it. Train station. He's going to flip. He might throw things.
Oh, the train station. After the train.
But that was so good, because cool, and I really loved it. So it worked out, even if it hurt you a little bit, which is kind of the point of your game.
It is. I'll be honest. I don't think. I mean, it could be. Oh God, we did an after the rain playthrough this past 2 weeks ago, I want to say, and we were a community puppet theater. Just, I don't know what it was. It's my friend, and then my friend's wife, who is also now my friend, by association, by extension. But both of those two girls were just like, what if we made Kyle's life as miserable as humanly possible right now? Literally anything they could do to just, I was like, the whole time I'm sitting there, like, why are you both like this? You've played this game before. Why are we doing? No, but we should make TikTok videos in the game. That's the only solution to our issues. I'm like, please God, allow me to slam my head. And I love them both dearly. And they, of course, I gave them a hard time about it afterwards. But it was, again, I think you're right. I that's the best way to end it is, yes, I think sometimes like you have to cause your game master some amount of pain.
Absolutely. I hope none of my players watch this.
They're going to be like, really, Paul? To start sharpening the stakes.
Right.
Pain, you say? Oh my God. I think, is anything else? I guess I'm ready now. I'm excited. These are good questions. They're questions I haven't thought about actually in a little bit. So.
Oh, and that was really my last one. Dang. Well,
that works out well because
now I'm disappointing you again.
No, it actually works out because this time I get to ask you, as it is Desks and Dorks tradition. By the way, before we do the thing we do at the end of every episode of Desks and Dorks, please check out TechnoFunkBoy on all of the socials, on YouTube, Instagram, all of it. Go look at him, go get his music, go watch his plays, go watch Dyson Jury, go support this man. We're going to put his links so here on YouTube and as well, so you can check him out too. Please. If you want some sweet role-playing game content, go support our friend over there, TechnoFunkBoy. This is the man. So
thank you.
TechnoFunk man. But before we do that, obviously you can follow Desks and Dorks. You can check it out. If you go to desksanddorks.org, you can sign up to be notified for the full retail release. Oh God, that's the most beautiful sentence to say.
Nice,
full retail release of After the Rain. Yes, there are still copies. You can still pick them up. They are not They are not at the Kickstarter price, but if you are like, man, I can't believe I missed this. I was sleeping and I missed it. Don't worry, we got you. You can get yourself a high quality PDF, or you can get yourself a soft cover copy or with character cards over on desksanddorks.org. You can be notified when those go live. Super exciting. Very, very pumped there. So please make sure you go check that out. And then obviously this is a Desks and Dorks classic. You have to end every episode with a weird question. Usually I torture Riley with this. Today I get to torture you. And I wanted to make it a special weird Desks and Dorks question because I love the Dyson Jury stuff and I love Strahd. Assume for a moment that you have to go to a fast food restaurant that is owned and operated by one of the characters from Curse of Strahd. Whose restaurant would you like to least visit and why? I love this so much.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Or for those of you who are unfamiliar with Curse of Strahd, you can replace this with any Transylvanian classic Universal Studios movie monster. So
any NPC from
any, and you gotta
okay.
tell, as long as you tell me why, like the Backstreet Boys, I'll be happy.
My instinct is Ismark because I hate him.
The best one. My instinct. Why? Because I hate them. I dislike them.
Gosh. There's a quick story about that. Like in the game, like when we got and this is on the podcast, Dyson Jury, and we encountered like wolves attacking and Strahd was there and all that, and I got mad at Ismark and I rolled to see if I could control my anger. That was me doing it, and I failed the roll. And so in character, I started yelling at Ismark, but like for a moment, like me, the player, was coming through because I hated this character. And so I started yelling a lot more than I thought I would. And that's when, character and player combine. Okay. So, fast food restaurant is called Blood on the Vine because that stupid that stupid innkeeper there,
yes,
who literally has no soul. That's a little bit of a spoiler for Curse of Strahd, but the man has zero soul and he's there just to irritate new players. Would be the worst place to go, because literally, like, that's the first place you visit in Barovia, and he's soulless and mean and
just the worst.
It just rude and like he doesn't care at all, and he doesn't want to help, and he wants your money and for you to go away. And that, I feel like I've been to that fast food place.
Yeah, that's a Popeyes. You've literally just described a Popeyes. Thank you, Paul. You literally just described Popeyes.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. Oh, now do you have to answer the same question?
I do have to answer the same question. This is like the reminder of my own mortality. I am a hoist on my own petard. Every time I have to answer my own question. So if I make it like just a horrible degenerate one, I still have to subject myself to it, because you got it. You just got it. I'm blanking on their names, but there's that clan of werewolves, right? That like lives in that cave.
Yeah.
That one. Because here's the thing, right? And again, it's been forever since I've played Curse of Strahd, but like, I feel like you go there and like you try to do stuff. And then you're usually so ill prepared to walk literally into this giant den of nonstop werewolf madness that you wind up running away or get torn to shreds. Or even you don't, there's like other werewolves otherwhere in the countryside, and they come back and they torment you and they harry you, or like one of you gets lycanthropy and then you have to deal with it. And it never ends. The dumb werewolf. What's up?
By the way, my character got lycanthropy.
Yes. Did you get it from the cave werewolves?
No, we fought werewolves 3 separate times.
Oh my God.
It was, it was kind of epic. When you get there, it's epic. It's epic podcasting, but it was
that's my pick, because it's like, have you ever signed up for a rewards program, like the McDonald's app rewards program? And it never stops doing, can we use your location? Can the McDonald's app use your camera? Can the McDonald's app send you deal emails? It's never ending. It's never ending. It is the most infuriating thing ever, because it's like, no, could you just give me the discount on the Big Mac? That's all I want. It's that. That's it's the never ending werewolf problems. That's it. That's my pick.
There's one that's like that. That's Argenvost told. With the main dude was Vladimir. I might be getting him confused. Yeah, I think it was Vladimir.
I mean, that seems like you could probably just chuck a stone in Barovia and hit like 6 Vladimir.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I feel like you're safe.
But it's similar to that, where you get there and it is a massive dungeon. It is a massive manor, and there's not actually a lot in it. So you're just kind of going from room to room. And at the end of it, again, spoilers for if you have not played Curse of Strahd, at the end, it's like, oh, we really need the skull of a dragon, and it's in Ravenloft. So go over there. It's like, so we accomplished 0 things here, 0, and yeah, no, like exactly that type of a thing. It's a
Panera bread.
Yes.
Widely spacious, weirdly spacious, almost accomplishes nothing. It's a Panera bread.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. That was a great question. I love that.
Join us. That's a free one. I want to ask the Dyson Jury crew, because I would be curious, or wait till I pop up as my one-off NPC appearance and then ask them that. Join us next week when Paul and I literally turn every real world fast food place into its Ravenloft parallel.
Oh man. No, like my character in that is famous about having curses. So I was cursed by the dark powers, actually ultimately twice. No. I was cursed by Morgantha. I was cursed by the werewolves. And so like we were making jokes that the only reason I survived, it's like that Simpsons episode where like all of Mr. Burns's diseases are like clogged because there's so many of them, and so none of them can actually get through to kill him. And so as soon as they cure one, the other ones will kill him instantly. It was like that. There were so many curses, they were actually just fighting. That's the only reason I was alive. So listen to Dyson Jury, where you can hear my character get cursed on an average of once every 10 episodes
and do all of the amazing things. Well, my friends, that brings us to the end of this episode of Desks and Dorks. You guys have been awesome. As always, I've been Kyle Ott. I have been joined by.
Hey, thank you. I thank you for joining, for having me on. I'm TechnoFunkBoy, and throw a rock at the internet. You'll hit me.
And we will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.